From the National Weather Service, this is Jonathan Blaze with our weekly weather briefing for Central North Carolina. The period of the briefing today will extend from today, June 2nd, all the way out through June 8th, which is next Wednesday. And we'll go ahead and get started. First, just another reminder that the hurricane season is underway, and that's relevant for today's briefing as we're watching a tropical system likely developing in the Gulf of Mexico. The official Atlantic hurricane season began on yesterday, on June 1st. And again, NOAA continues to predict an above normal season in terms of activity across the Atlantic basin, primarily driven by the ongoing La Nina, as well as above average water temperatures out in the Atlantic. With that forecast in mind, there's only a 10% chance of a below normal season, so a high confidence of 90% chance of a near normal to above normal, and specifically 65% probability of the year turning out above normal. In terms of specifics, we expect anywhere from 2 to 3 dozen named storms in the Atlantic, which includes 6 to 10 hurricanes and perhaps 3 to 6 major hurricanes. And the first system this year in the Atlantic Basin will be named Alex, followed by Bonnie, Colin, Daniel, and Earl. So why is that relevant for today? Well, we're watching an area of low pressure that's down in the southern and southeastern Gulf of Mexico. On the upper left panel here, you can see a couple contours down in this area near the Yucatan and western Cuba. That is an area of low pressure that actually originated with a hurricane in the eastern Pacific. And that system, Agatha, moved across Mexico, maintained itself just enough, and now as it's emerging over the warm waters in the Gulf and western Caribbean, it is expected to develop into a tropical depression, quite likely, and possibly a tropical storm. While that's going on over the next handful of days, we have a cold front that today extends from the New England states and New York, southwest across the Appalachian Mountains into the deep south. That front is expected to cross the mountains this evening and move across our area in central North Carolina overnight, reach coastal parts of the Carolinas as we head into late Friday. And as by the time we get to Saturday morning, it should be kind of set up as in this frame in the upper right portion, mainly from Savannah south and west and just east off the coast. As that front goes through the region today, we expect scattered showers and thunderstorms to develop. They'll be very numerous up near the Delmarva and Chesapeake Bay region, much more scattered for our area. And as the front goes through, there might be a minimum of activity tomorrow morning, and then storms trying to redevelop tomorrow afternoon. But at that point, the front will actually be just east of most of our area and will be near the coast. So we're kind of going to miss the main effect of this front, as the best activity will be this afternoon and evening west of central North Carolina across the mountains. And then by the time things ramp up tomorrow with the afternoon storms, the front will actually be near and just east of us, so we'll kind of be in the minimum spot there. But that front is important because when it settles south of us, that will provide a little bit of a blocking mechanism for the tropical system developing across the Gulf. On this map in the upper right, which is for Saturday morning, the see an area of low pressure here, noted south of Tampa and northwest of Key West. That is the developing tropical cyclone, which is likely to move northeast across Florida, and at this point should remain well south and east of the Carolina coast. However, there'll be a significant northeast and easterly flow, which could drive some agitated wave activity and rip current threat along the coast. And wouldn't surprise us if there's still a few showers that move across the coastal areas, perhaps even into our far southeastern areas, but the impact should be fairly minimal, it appears, at this point. And then quiet weather otherwise for this weekend into early next week, and we have the next frontal system approaching us as we head into the middle of next week with another chance of thunderstorms. Temperature-wise, we'll be back to near normal over the weekend with highs in the 80s to around 90 in some spots. And then by the middle of next week, we'll be back up well into the 90s for a few days as that front approaches. So specifically looking at the tropical weather outlook, here is a highlight for the area of concern as noted in this 5-day tropical weather outlook product from the Hurricane Center. Most recently, they gave it an 80% chance of developing over the next couple of days, so it does appear rather likely. And the track is fairly consistent that it's going to move off to the east and northeast. Close, but quite likely not impacting us other than some surf conditions here in the Carolinas. Be advised, there are a couple models out there, as it seems like there always are, that suggest a little bit more active pattern with perhaps more storms, an inland moving coastal front, and the like. That solution seems very unlikely at this point, and we're kind of discounting it. So right now, we're fairly confident that this will be a storm that impacts the coastal areas and more likely places out to sea. Next up, looking at the accumulated rainfall forecast for the next week. Today's forecast is shown in the upper left here. Again, it highlights some scattered storms across the western parts of North Carolina and especially in the mountains, and then other activity up in the Virginia area. We're just on the edges of both of those, but there will be some scattered storms that threaten us this afternoon and even into the overnight. As the front moves east, you'll notice on Friday the best chances of storms and precipitation is mainly across the coastal parts of North Carolina, with much of central North Carolina remaining dry. Can roll out a few showers perhaps in the coastal plains, Sandhills area tomorrow afternoon, but those will be moving off to the east and northeast. And again, the best activity will be right along the coast. Should be generally dry for Saturday and into Sunday and early Monday. And then the panel here for Tuesday and Wednesday highlights very light precipitation. That's with the approaching front. And to be honest with you, we're not terribly confident on how active that will be or if that will even make it to us on Tuesday and Wednesday. The big news for those days will be temperatures, which will be warming up well into the 90s. The 7-day total of accumulated rain over this period, again, is very light. Those are very meager amounts, generally averaging a quarter inch or less, and some spots even much less than that. So we're going to be kind of in a hole here in the central parts of Virginia and North Carolina with very limited rain over the next week or so. Severe weather potential, I described the threat of storms today. They'll be most active again up to our north in the Chesapeake Bay region. We could see a few stronger storms, perhaps near the Virginia border, and also some in the west out toward the Triad, especially toward the mountains. That area is highlighting mainly storms that will develop in the mountains and push east and then weaken. For much of us, though, the storm threat today is fairly limited. However, it's worth noting that given the way the atmosphere is set up today, if we do get any storms, they will have the potential to produce some very localized but very strong winds, downburst type setup for this afternoon and evening. Tomorrow's severe weather threat is confined to locations south of Fayetteville toward the coast. Again, the front is going to be down in this region, and the strongest storms will be near and east of the front. So we will miss out on that activity for Friday for the most part. But if you're down near Fayetteville or Clinton, could see a stronger storm, very isolated on Friday afternoon. Excessive rainfall potential is minimal given the limited coverage and intensity of the rain and the generally lack of heavy rain other than just some localized kind of threat from a thunderstorm. So we'll move through that. The 8 to 14 day outlook, which takes us out to June 15th, so mid-June, shows a trophy-like pattern, which suggests temperatures near or below normal across much of the Midwest and Great Lakes. But we're just east of the trough, so our temperatures will likely average near or perhaps above normal during that period. And the temperature chances do suggest that we may have just a slight threat of above normal coverage. This is likely to be with disorganized showers and thunderstorms, so coverage will be quite limited, to be quite honest with you. Not a good indication of a significant rainfall event in our future over the next week or two. Next slide highlights the drought, and the drought summary for the previous week is shown here in the lower left. And if you compare that to the most recent outlook shown in the larger image here in the center part of the frame, you'll notice there's very little change. Hasn't been a lot of recovery. We did have some decent rainfall amounts occur in the western 2/3 of the state. However, from I-95 east, there's been very little rain over the past week or so. And so we've seen these drought conditions persist here in the coastal plain. Right along the Outer Banks and then near the sounds, there actually was some significant precip that occurred that actually improved conditions here slightly. However, for central North Carolina, conditions are rather unchanged, and given the dry forecast coming up, I would expect these drought conditions to deteriorate over the next week or so. All right, so hitting the highlights for today, another hot day. Today should be the last hot day of our current stretch as a cold front is approaching our area this evening. With that, we'll have very limited storm coverage through mid-afternoon, and then a general increase in isolated to scattered or widely scattered showers and storms this afternoon and evening. Again, keep in mind, a few storms could have some strong wind gusts. Those will be rather localized, but probably most favored near the north, near the Virginia border, and out in the western Piedmont. There may be storms that actually do continue in a very isolated nature overnight, but we don't expect those to be terribly robust. And as the front pushes south and east on Friday, the storm chances should be confined mainly to the coastal plain and sandhills, with most of the rest of the area generally storm-free. We do expect quiet weather in the weekend. Should be a real nice weekend weather-wise, with skies generally pretty fair and temperatures cooling off to near normal. We'll be monitoring the tropical system, which could throw some extra clouds into the coastal plain, perhaps a rogue shower on Sunday into Monday, but we think that likelihood is very limited. And the next cold front will approach toward the middle of next week. We'll have to just stay tuned on that as we warm up next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Hazards and impacts, again, we talked about the strong storms today, which is some localized damaging wind gusts possible. Keep in mind that the big impact in terms of weather will be along the coast and certainly in the surf. So if you have folks traveling down to the coastal areas, really anywhere from the Chesapeake Bay south to Florida, it's going to be a bit of an unsettled beach experience with increasing wave activity, some coastal weather hazards, including rip currents, quite possible as we head into the weekend and even into early next week. So be abreast and mindful of that. With that in mind, we'll end our briefing here. I will stand by for some questions or any specific concerns you might have. Keep in mind, you can always reach out to us through our NWS chat or by giving us a ring. We'd be more than happy to help any kind of concerns you have. So with that, I hope everyone has a great weekend. I'll stand by for questions.